Hey guys, how you doing today? This is John Klein with Brandwidth. I'm here with Louis Farsadakis, CEO and founder of Blink. Louis, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be on.
Pleasure, pleasure. Well, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
We started in business really, really young. My first and only job was Burger King. 15 years old, and I had the pleasure of having the worst manager ever. And they made me realize I never want to work for somebody again. So at one point, I was working 20 hours a day, making $4 an hour, $80 a week. And I said, if I put 20 hours of my time into anything, can't I make 80 bucks? And I just felt like I could. And that prompted me to get into products. I imported this little gadget, and sure enough, I started selling that little gadget. And I started that with my parents, thankfully, believing in a young 15-year-old and giving me a line of credit. And $5,000 when you're 15 is a lot of money, so I had a lot of pressure
Wow.
to make it happen. I didn't know how much it was, right? It seemed like a lot of money because I bought all this product. And so I just hustled, got really good at selling because when I couldn't figure out how to sell it to big corporations, I didn't know that you have to go to a corporate head office. At 15, like I didn't know there's a corporate head office in one city and they control all the buying. I thought you could just go into CVS and say, hey, do you want to buy my product? And so there's a lot of, I've learned lessons the hard way early on. And so from 15, I just did, kind of little business after little business, kept growing. And when I was 19, made my first $120,000 in about like 4 hours. And that was, to a 19-year-old, like a lot of money, all the money in the world, especially back then. And and then the year after that, I was $250,000 in debt. And the year after
Oh
that,
wow.
I made that up. So it was kind of a, early on because I didn't have anyone to kind of show me. I didn't come from a background that I didn't have any knowledge or tutor or mentorship. So I kept making money and then kept going down, kept making money. And then by the time I was like about 20, I realized, you know what, I need to learn. Like learning, that's the first big lesson there was learn from people who have done it. And I'm not the first one to say that. A lot of people always say that, but I don't think people understand how important that is. Don't go, it's easy to get like friends and family supporting you. And if you're looking to do something, find it, learn it from someone who's done it. Very, very, very important. And thankfully, life, as hard as I tried, as much as I tried to become a millionaire, it just didn't work out for me that young. And I found this great mentor. And at that time, I think I was making like $220,000 a year or something. And I took a job with him at $35,000 a year just to learn, just to like be around him, just to be around his social circle and meet his people and his, and then I was sitting in the boardroom of CEOs of multi-billion dollar companies, things that I would never, have gotten into otherwise. So there is the value of mentorship, which again, I'm sure your audience knows the importance of. I found one, and once I knew how smart the guy was and how accomplished and how wealthy, I just wanted to learn. It was more important for me to learn than anything else. Making that extra money at that time. So big
Wow.
knowledge advocate.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
on that note, also, I'm not a big fan of people that just say, university is a scam or college is a scam. Of course, you could probably throw away half of the stuff. Sure, you'll never use something. Sure, you never. But there's a very, very important part of being complete. Street smarts, it's great. You need to have it, right? I'm not going to say no, but academic smarts also, are very important. You don't pick one or the other. Do both. Because life, the way I would summarize whether it's business or life is, or let's stick on business. You could be smart enough or lucky enough, right? Or hardworking enough. Some people are just really, hardworking, or some people are all of it to make it, right? But that's only part one. Part two is you got to be smart enough to keep it. A lot of people don't make that part, right? And that's where the academic side can really help, or I found at least it helped me. And when you have numbers in the U.S. like 95% of businesses fail within their first 5 years, that kind of supports that. Hey, why aren't people keeping it once they make it? And and most people never get to phase 3, which is you got to be smart enough to transfer it when you're old enough, and then you have your family. Transferring that is a whole other thing. The knowledge and the money, and making sure you're doing it in an intelligent way. So, yeah, there's that.
Man, yeah, that's super interesting. So you got a mentorship. I think you said you were 2019 or something like that.
Yeah, about 20. Yeah, and it was an
And
interesting time.
yeah, and so how long did you have that mentor for?
So I decided at the time because when I met him, I was doing really well in network marketing, and I didn't want to make money that way. I know it sounds kind of weird, but I knew that every time I was really good at like selling out halls and convincing people to get into this whatever deal at the time I was doing and pushing, because really you're pushing a business opportunity, and I just didn't feel good because I knew 9 out of 10 would not succeed, and I didn't want to take their money just to make me, wealthy. I didn't like making money that way. So I decided I'm going to be an industrialist. And I found a very interesting idea of doing an aluminum smelter, plant. I don't know if you know what aluminum smelting is, but basically, metals are alloys. And if you take an aluminum that has different types of metals, you would the easiest way to explain it is, let's say a particular piece of metal has 3 types of alloys in it. You would turn up the heat at the lowest metal that's in there, and it would melt away from that item, and then you would turn up the heat again, and then you would melt out the second thing. So I was focusing and specializing in aluminum, and at the time the Soviet Union had collapsed, and they had a ton of scrap. So I was introduced, and I was looking for scrap because you got to feed your facility, right? I wasn't going to build something before I knew I could feed it, and the scrap was what I was looking for. And then so that looking for scrap, and my mentor working working a lot in Eastern Europe when it collapsed. He was born in Eastern Europe but educated in the West, so he kind of understood both worlds. And that's how we met. And at one point he's like, "Hey, are you adventurous?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm adventurous." He goes, "And do you want to look around and want me to show you where all this stuff is coming from?" And I said, "Sure." So he sent me a flight ticket, and it was a 5-day trip to 5 countries. So my first meeting was in London. I was sitting with the CEO of Lehman Brothers. My second meeting was Thomson Electronics in Paris. I went to Bulgaria and to Russia, and when the old Soviet Union, when they built things, they built it for the entire Soviet Union, right? So you would see plants that were like 5 football fields long, and stories high, like just huge. And I was building a little aluminum smelter, 40 ton. And he says, "Listen, Louis, you want scrap? I'll send scrap, but I would love somebody who kind of knows how to work the Western world and help me out, and we can do all this stuff." And it was too exciting of an offer, so I jumped and spent 10 years running around Eastern Europe doing a whole bunch of interesting stuff.
Oh, wow. Tell me more about so in Eastern Europe you did, that was like for the scrap, or what else, other things did you do?
So over the years, we did a lot of privatization, technology transfer. So we would refurbish nuclear power plants. Like I remember in Kozloduy, Sofia, Bulgaria, they used to use humans early on to change the nuclear rods. So we would bring technology so that it could be automated rather than use humans, which would get cancer, right? You can't have them exposed to uranium. And so really cool things, tying energy grids, privatizing PTTs. So the AT&T of Russia was Rostelecom, so we privatized that, and then the second, third tier carriers. So every time we would do a project, like let's take that one, the second and third tier carriers that emerged, we would create a little business out of it. So one of the companies that we founded became the first IP wholesale internet protocol IP wholesale company, telecom company in the world that tied East and West. And then we would, build that company, and then we would sell telephone traffic, and then either that business would get sold, or if the materials ended, the business would be shut down. An example of materials ending, when we did a fiber project across Russia. And when you do a fiber project and lay down fiber around the railways, you have to take out the copper. Well, when you take out the copper, the old copper, what are you going to do with it, right? You might as well recycle it. So you recycle the copper until that's done, and then, moving on. So I was lucky enough to touch a lot of different industries. And, but in the past 26 years, I've been kind of just in one particular business. And it started because, it was related to my work with my mentor. And the way it was related is that in every country, back then, early then, it was like crazy Wild West. The governments would change every 5 days. But the people who actually understood how things work, the physicists, the chemists, they would stay and continue the projects, moving them forward, right? And so my mentor was smart enough to build these intellectual pools of capital in every one of these countries, so that we'd have a team to continue the projects he was working on, and I would support him in these projects. So one day, my now wife, then girlfriend, was complaining about mascara, and so now I've given you a little bit of a background, right? I was doing nuclear, tying energy grids and all these $400 million projects. And then she's complaining about mascara, and I'm like, there's no way there's not a mascara that doesn't smear, smudge, and flake. I mean, we put a man on the moon. Like, there's technology out there, and I just couldn't believe it. There's huge companies, and they should have figured that out. It turns out that she was right, and I sent out the top 10 that came the closest that she sent me to one of these scientists that were working with us and working for us. And then I said, why do these smear and smudge? And they said, you know what? They're all oil-based paints. I don't even have to test them. I could tell you they're all oil-based paints. And then we got onto the idea of, okay, well, how do you stop this smearing and smudging and flaking? Back and forth, a couple of years. And then we, invented tubing mascara. And tubing technology is now so important in the beauty space that every brand of is launching, a tubing mascara. So that business has been, I've been there for 26 years. We sold just hundreds of millions of dollars of tubing mascaras around the world. And to my surprise, if you ask like 10 people, what a tubing mascara is, they'll still be like, 5 of them will probably be like, no, I've never heard from it. So lots of potential still, thankfully.
Oh yeah. I was actually, after our conversation, I was telling my wife about it, and she was like, she's never heard of it either. And I was like, oh, this is like, I was like selling it to her. She's like, oh, she's like, that's interesting, but I don't know about like putting plastic on my face, and then like that's not gonna come off my eyelashes. I was like, no, he said he just kind of pull them, and they pull off like they're like little tubes.
Yeah.
And
Well, not pull, you slide them off. So
slide
the
them
way
off.
it
Sorry.
works, yeah, the way the technology works is it creates, and it's not like putting plastic in it. So you put it on like a mascara, like a normal mascara. But when it sets, it creates a tube around the lashes, and then when it dries, when the air hits it and it dries, it clamps on your lash. Now it stays on for dear life. You could cry, sweat, just nothing makes it come off. However, when it's time to remove, and that's completely at your discretion, you can remove it whenever you want. You can even sleep with it if you want. And I'm describing our tubing technology, right? Like good, real tubing technology. There's a lot of people that come out with not so good tubing technology that are kind of giving tubing technology a bad name. But the way it's supposed to perform is the way I'm explaining to you. You can tear, you could sweat. Even if you have oily skin, it should not come off. But when you do want it to come off, you need 2 things at the same time. A lot of water, and gentle pressure. So it's not pulling off, it's sliding off the way you would slide your sleeve jacket off of your arm. So the water, what it does is it loosens the grip of the tubes, and then the gentle pressure, whether it's fingertip or a washcloth or a cotton round, just slides the tubes off, and you actually see the tiny tubes in your hand. So yeah, and you don't need eye makeup remover. And the reason that's great is the eye is the most sensitive part, in your entire body, most susceptible to wrinkling. So you don't want to be rubbing, with harsh makeup removers to remove that. So yeah, so that's kind of the innovation that started us, and now we've progressed to tubing eyeliners and tubing primers, and we're continuing innovating in that space and doing a couple more things that are interesting.
Yeah, man, that's so interesting. I'm still curious. So you were doing work over, in the East, and then did you just stop doing that and started doing mascara, or how did that transition?
Yeah, so I was with my mentor about 10 years, and halfway through I got invited to, I was kind of tired of crossing the Atlantic every 2 weeks, really, and going to some parts that were just, not developed at the time. And when you're coming from America and you're like used to everything we're used to, and then you go to places where they turn off the water for 3 days and they have to fill up their bathtubs just to have water for the next 2 days. It was kind of like, it's kind of growing on me. I love the projects, and I've learned so much. But so then I kind of took a little break and went to a company in Louisville, Kentucky, which I had a great time. It was like I spent around 2 years there. I had a great time. But then I missed it, went back to my mentor for another 5 years, and with the understanding that, hey, let's build more businesses, and that's when the second half of that tenure, we just built, we were in telecom, we did a bunch of really cool stuff, and that taught me a lot, So near the end, like I was telling you, when I put the scientists on the mascara problem, once we discovered what to do, at that time, my wife said, well, I'll start this business. I'll start a business, and she started. So she actually started for the first 2 years, and we were working together, guiding her along the way. It was her first business, and she did great. She went to trade shows, and she was writing personal handwritten letters every time somebody would buy. Like, oh my God, and it was a really great experience. And by the way, on that note, to your audience, really suck in the journey. Everybody says it now, that the journey is not the destination, it's a journey, but it really is. When you remember all those things that you had to go through, that was the fun part. Just getting somewhere is not really as exciting as you think it would be, but everything you have to do to get there. So all those little things are in our memories now, and it was a phenomenal time. And 2 years into it, when I was finally done crossing the Atlantic forever, I looked at the business, and 78% customer retention ratio. And I've never seen that before. I've never seen, almost 80% of people come back and buy again 2 years later in anything that I had touched up to there. And I'm like, you know what? There's something here. So then we just went ham and built this business. So 26 years later, we're here, and proudly serving like our amazing and loyal customer base. And along the way, John, I've seen companies go like from 0 to 100 million, become way bigger than we've ever been. But then they're not there 2 years later. So there's a lot of lessons along the way. I would encourage your audience, do things for longevity. There's too much thinking and philosophy about the quick in and out. And if you build for longevity, you're much better off, in my opinion. People have different opinions on this topic, but and if you want me to give you a little bit of a nugget, or give your audience a little bit of a nugget, at least from my experience, what that means is, let's take pricing, for example, right? Pricing, it's not just setting a price. You have to factor in, you have to price for longevity, right? Because your growth is not just a balance sheet problem. Actually, it's a balance sheet problem way before it's a marketing problem, right? And we learned that the hard way. Like we jumped, for example, on opportunities along the way where we could double orders, but then we ran out of cash, right? And all of that could be brought back to just a pricing strategy, right? In our business, and I'm sure in a lot of businesses, you have to pay for components, like 50% off, just 50% up front, just to start getting it, and then the other 50 before you even ship it. And then you have 2-3 months of production, and then retailers will pay you in 60 to 90 days after delivery. Basically, you're a bank. Like I was a bank with Mascara as a side product, right? And so the top line can kill you faster than any recession can if your cash conversion cycle is upside down. So the price of a product, although it's a simple concept, it doesn't just express like the value of your product or service. It pays for your customers' 60 to 90 day terms, right? So if I were to give one piece of advice on this topic in terms of longevity and as it relates to pricing, ask yourselves, are you charging enough to finance your customers' payment terms explicitly? Like treat payment terms, minimum order quantities, and the lead times, for example, as pricing inputs. Make finance sit inside of your pricing, right? Not after it. But again, that's my how I do things. Other people will give you different, answers. They'll be like, just raise money. And but remember, if you were just to raise money, you're getting diluted, and dilution is a permanent tax. Whereas if you were to fix your terms and MOQs and lead times, you're creating a compounding asset. So just different ways to look at things.
No, I love that. I think that's so interesting. And I totally agree. Equity is the most expensive part that you can give away in a business by far. And what would you do? I think you gave a couple examples, but what exact steps can you take to make sure, like a little checklist maybe, to make sure that you're on track to be able to cash flow continuously?
So again, there's a lot to do. It's not a little checklist, and it all depends business specific, right? So like I said, in my particular business, you have to factor in the payment terms. You have to factor in your MOQs. You have to factor in everything that will affect you financially so that you're able to self-finance. So my goal in any business that I've ever done, and I think it's 12 at this point, the biggest one being something like 25 million a year. My Blink business, like I said, has sold hundreds of millions of dollars of product. And today we're at 80% again, just like we were pre-COVID. So our margins at 80%, it becomes very easy to,
Beautiful.
get healthy again. And to get margins like that, it's not just setting a price. You have to do a lot of things right. You have to buy right, and you have to manage your cash flow correctly, right? Otherwise, you won't get to those types of margins. So there's a lot of work to be done to get to margins like that. But once you're there, it's really, really easy to scale and become healthy and, overcome anything that life throws your way. In this one business alone, we've had several almost, events that almost just destroyed us. One of them was back in 2011 or 2012 in Japan, where we had all of our production at one point because the formula was secret. I didn't want the world to have it. And they're very loyal, and I had great partners there. And but they had a nuclear reactor explosion, and we couldn't get products for like 8-9 months. We almost died then. And then COVID was another big one. Currency issues if you manufacture overseas. You gotta you just gotta survive. You gotta figure it out.
Yeah,
So,
man.
yeah,
So I had a question. So you invented the tubing technology, right?
correct.
And so we talked a little bit about patenting products, and then also trademarking stuff. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, at the time, we were just starting out, so we didn't have the money to do. I had a lot of intelligent people, thankfully, around me, like my mentor, and he basically explained to me that a patent is only as valuable as your ability to defend it, and we didn't have any ability to defend it. And what he basically told me is, the minute if your idea is great and this product works, they're going to copy it, and somebody who has a bigger distribution network will copy it and send it to the world faster. It actually is what happened. Bigger companies copied us and got it to market a lot faster. If anybody does know tubing mascara, it's not because we've been saying it and doing it for 26 years or 30 years now. It's probably because of the more current people who've had big budgets and been blasting it. So they're kind of doing us a favor, advertising this tubing technology that thankfully they research online. They're like, who invented tubing technology? And Blink comes up because we did. So that's a good thing. So we never really patented it. We decided to trademark the concept of tubing technology or tubing mascaras. And that kept us good for a long time. But again, when you have big conglomerates, and I'm not going to name names, but everybody and their mother right now is selling a tubing mascara. When you have these big guys, you're either going to make a decision to fight them for the rest of your life, right, and go bankrupt probably doing it, or just keep innovating. Let them keep chasing you. Let them keep
Love that ringtone.
trying to find out the next thing. So we've moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. What is your future plans for maybe the next 2 years on how you're going to grow? How are you going to outsmart everybody else?
Well, I don't know about outsmart, right? There's lots of smart people. We don't think we're the smartest. We don't think we're the best. We're not. Just the numbers say it, But we're okay with that, you know. And maybe that's another little nugget I can share with you guys. Don't try to always win. Try to always be the best, right? That's what you should try. We live in a very competitive environment. You gotta hustle. You gotta fight. But if you ask most of your audience, they probably never heard of my brand. But I've had a phenomenal life, and I'm continuing to having a phenomenal life, and my family has a phenomenal life, and my kids have a phenomenal life, and I'm great with it, right? Like, so you don't need to be the person who's number 100 on the billionaire list doesn't really care that, I'm pretty sure he's having a great life or she's having a great life, right? So compete, do your thing, but you don't have to be the one, to have a phenomenal life. Just put passion into your business and product or service. Treat your customers well so that they know you're there. I love my customers. When we hit supply chain issues during COVID, and batches were like horrible, and we have great quality control, right, for years and years and years. That's why our brand has lasted this long. That's why our customers love us. But we've had a couple of years where, oh my God, it was just all these issues, and we kept saying sorry. We're training a new lab, we're training a new facility. It's just, I'm sorry. And they stood by us. So you build brownie points when you do do right by your customers. So it's just simple stuff. Treat your customers well. Make sure you make a great product. A lot of people, to make it 26 years, you can't. It's not a given that whatever product or service you offer is going to be the same quality day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. That takes discipline. It takes a lot to get to that point, to have that type of quality. And that's what builds brands. Because if one day you have great quality and the other day you have bad quality, you're not going to be able to build an enduring brand, right? Makes sense.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, during COVID, pre-COVID, we were selling 95% to salons, spas, and beauty supply stores. That was our channel. And we love those customers, but when COVID came, it destroyed that channel. It caused a lot of harm. So we had to pivot and figure out, how are we going to grow? So to answer your question of what we're going to do and what we're doing going forward is we're becoming an omnichannel. We've become an omnichannel brand. So we sell, everywhere now, not just salons and spas, but we've developed our own direct-to-consumer business that we're learning, over time, and slowly but surely, and getting better at it. And it's surprising. On that note, I'll circle back to the e-commerce, but it's surprising how many people claim to be experts, and then when you get to them, you realize they don't know much more than just what logic would take you, where logic would take you. So it sounds very cryptic, so let me give you an example.
No, I feel you.
Attribution, for example, right? So all these, when we first started in e-commerce, all these platforms and consultants and we could do this, and then you find out that, oh my God, if I'm looking at your platform, like I should be making millions, but then I check my bank account and there's no millions. And there's a big attribution problem where everybody takes credit, for the other person's or another platform or something that they may have nothing to do with, and you just get overinflated numbers, So really dig in when it comes to figuring out, your funnel and where things are coming from. Like, really do a good job, and don't be scared to ask questions, because we would ask questions like, I just had a conversation actually with a chatbot that we just got rid of yesterday. They started changing their business model, and they started charging us for a percentage of sales. And they came back and I said, why are you charging me a percentage of sales? And they're like, because we helped sell that product. And I'm like, so you could show me with 100% certainty that you are only responsible for selling me that product? And they're like, yeah, of course. And they showed me that a customer already had 2 products in the cart without them, and then they just asked a question about one of them, and they changed from one shade to another, and now they took credit for that entire sale. I said, what are you doing? That has nothing to do with your thing. And plus, if what you're saying is true, my AOV would have changed from the day I got you. And look, my AOV is the same. So you got to be analytical, push people, make them prove things to you. It's just it's a cool game though. I love learning about e-commerce, and we're getting better at it, thankfully, day in day out. But yeah, today we're omnichannel. We sell to big retailers. We sell directly to ourselves. We sell on marketplaces like Amazon and Faire. And next year we're going to start international again.
International again. Awesome.
Yeah, half our business before COVID was international, and we had a physical presence in the UK, physical presence in Asia, and we had to decide whether we're going to pull the trigger or not because we didn't know how long this pandemic thing was going to last, how long we had to carry all these, you know, all this expenses, and overseas was even worse because they were taking longer than we were taking to get kind of back on track. And so you had to make a decision. You know, we had to live and fight another day.
Yeah. How do you plan on going overseas again? Are you going to go e-com first, retail first, or maybe start off with Amazon since they can fulfill easier?
So I had launched a brand internationally and another cosmetics brand, and that brand taught me that if you don't really know the local market, don't bother. So to answer your question, I'm going to launch again with distributors, finding international distributors that have phenomenal training, they have their own warehouse, and they have their own sales teams. If they don't have those three things, I'm not going to work with them. But that's what we're looking for, and then I'm just going to make it simple for me. They're going to come here, pick it up, and then we'll work with them. And thankfully, we've been finding the right, not just a distributor, but the right distributor in already kind of several different markets. And as long as they have those criteria, right, they meet those criteria, then they'll do a better job in their own language, you know, in their own country marketing. You know, like we don't know words like cheeky in the UK. You know, like you can't market the same way. You really need to understand the local dialogue. And so yeah, I'm not a big fan of doing something yourself unless you have that expertise there. And I've also learned that the expensive and hard way doing it, trying to do it.
Yeah. So so this is a storefronts, basically retail is what you're going to originally start with? Or
No,
this is
no,
just more of like a,
the distributors can retail wherever they want because each of them have different specialties. Some people focus only on, you know, online e-commerce. Others have retailers of their own, big chains or small. We just will have the international guys come and take our product from our warehouse in Utah, and then it's all up to them from that point on. We'll, of course, help them. We'll give them assets. We'll give them copy, but they need to discover how much of that they need to use or translate for their own market.
man, yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So 26 years, is your wife still a big part of it? Are you running it mostly? Is she running it? How do you guys do that?
So for a while, you know, she was out of it because we were building a family, and we decided that that was the best thing for us to do. And now, you know, two kids in college and one about to graduate high school. So we're and by the way, they're all involved. You know, they're all helpful, and they're all so it's kind of like a small family business. You know, and we like it. We love being like that, and it just has an extra
That's so
aura
sweet.
about it. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, she got involved again a couple of years ago, and it's been fun, and she's always loved it, and she's definitely a big part of it today.
Okay, so when you guys were having your first kid, she kind of backed off, let you kind of handle it, and then now she's
Right,
hopping
yeah.
back in.
Yeah, doing like all the trade shows that we used to do, you know, you can't travel and you're pregnant, and
Tod-
then it's
Toddlers,
tough. Right?
man. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, my wife is. She just all she does is just make sure my son survives the day, you know, than him.
Hey,
So I
it's a
feel
lot of
that.
work. It's you know, and for many years, on that note, I know it's unrelated to business, but just for whoever it's relevant to, for many years, you know, she kind of felt like, because she was, you know, she was so great, she's just a very smart businesswoman, and for many years she was like, oh, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, what do you mean you're not doing anything? We're raising three kids. You have a household. Like, you know how many things, you know. You have to really appreciate all the work that it takes to run a household. It's not easy, you know. It's not easy, and all the things that entails, and to be part of it, to be an active parent, right? Anybody can just pop out a kid and ignore them, but if you're going to be an active, you know, parent that's there, and wants to see your child through every aspect of their life and help them as much as they can, it's not easy. It's not easy. I could not have done it without my wife, and I still can't do it without my wife.
Mm,
So,
I love that. I love that. This is interesting because I just talked to Todd with Connecticut Lightings, and
right?
he inherited a third generation business, right, from his grandfather started it, and now he's taking it over. And we talked a little bit about that, how that's different. Where like I started my own company, you started your own companies, um, and it's like it's your own versus like I also have a friend, protect a child pool fence, where he's inheriting it from his dad. I say this to say it sounds like your kids are involved. How do you plan on going about that with a family business?
So for now, it's on pause. It's more for my wife and I to do something in continuing, to keep us busy. And we love the business, and we have a lot more to give. In all these years, we're still just focused on the eyes. We still have more eye products, and at one point, we're going to expand into the rest of the cosmetics. And now with AI and all these exciting things that are happening, we may even get into the real beauty that at one point we'll figure out that this little DNA change, is the reason we're creating a wrinkle, right? And then imagine all the things that'll come out of that. So I think we're in for a lot of exciting things happening in all industries, and including ours. Um, and the reason I say it's on pause is because I don't know if, like, one child wants to get into finance, so
Okay.
I'm pretty sure she's not interested in doing that. But you never know. Maybe she sees finance and is not what she thought, and decides wants to come back and be in the family business. So if I have zero of the three kids interested in it, that's one path. Probably exit at some point. And if at least one is interested in it, will be a different decision.
Yeah, man, that's super interesting. So yeah, it sounds like you and your wife are going on the journey to continue to grow the product. I see you guys have. Tell us some of the products you have right now, and then anything you guys are planning on making.
Yeah, so right now we're still, like I said, all eye focused. So tubing mascaras are what we created and we're known for. What other brands that only have launched one will find out in time is one size does not fit all, right? So over the years we've learned that different mascara, different lash types, and different desired looks require different formulas, different brushes. And so we have four tubing mascaras at this point. And today we're the only ones that have transferred the tubing technology onto eyeliners. So it works the same way. You just peel off the eyeliner when you're done, just with water and slight pressure. And this year was a very exciting year because we've evolved tubing technology to wrap and quench hairs, brow hairs and lash hairs, with a lot of benefits, right? So, and we're targeting specifically a very big booming market that's, I think, 3.5 billion and growing only in the U.S. And that's the the treatment market. So, salon services such as lash lifts, lash tints, eyebrow laminations. When you get those services done, they're usually, they're pricey services, and you want to make them last as long as possible, and you also want to calm down and treat either your hairs and your skin right after those services. So we've evolved tubing technology to also do that. So we've launched some pretty exciting products this year that tackles that. So yeah, so we're evolving the tubing story, and we're also getting into products that will really visibly show big treatment benefits, but at the same time always delivering value to our customers. And a good example of that is we just launched an eye cream, peptide eye cream. And the ingredients in that peptide eye cream are more plentiful than the $500 or $1,000 eye creams that are out there. So we said one day, we're sitting like, why are they $1,000 eye creams? We get the whole brand name thing, but are they really worth $1,000? And we found out that no, man, they're not worth $1,000. So we put the same ingredients, the same ferments, and the same peptides, and even more, and we're delivering incredible value that way. And ours sells for $38, and actually in some cases even in phenomenal packaging that has like massage treatment or red light therapy and a magnetic therapy and all of that for great value. So always carrying looking for our customers and deliver value to our customers first and foremost.
Mm. How do you guys differentiate marketing versus branding?
Marketing versus branding. Well, every time you market your brand, no, you're always branding, always be branding. Is
So you're focused on, say, building the name more or putting product out there?
So we don't have the budget to do. You know, thankfully today there's a lot of things you could do in middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel. We don't have a big top funnel budget, so we don't spend a lot of money like the bigger brands do for awareness and for top funnel type of activities, which are also, you know, great for branding and great for bringing you through the funnel. What we've done over the years is our product performance and word of mouth has always built us, and we've you know, had maybe 20% average growth since our inception, and 20%, you know, is not wow, but it's for 26 years consistently.
Wow.
And that's great for me, right? And we're happy with that. So going back to that thing where I know there's brands that do 5,000 one year, but are they going to be around in 3 years? You know, do they know how to properly manage their cash flow? Do they understand all the other things that come with running a business? And so that's our numbers, you know, and we're great with them and we're happy with them. And so we focus more on delivering a great product, because although it takes longer to kind of get through and people to talk about it, if you always deliver great products, your reputation becomes great. And it's just inevitable. So it doesn't matter how fast, you know, you don't always have to go super fast. Just do it really well. And you'll be great. And you got to understand also the times where things are not going well, right? So let me share with you another, maybe let's call it another nugget, right? So over the years, there have been times where ROAS, you know, the word everybody uses now, and it's an important word, but there have been times where ROAS dies, right? And a very important takeaway for those times is stop paying, like, I call it an ad tax, right? And start instead compounding owned attention instead, right? So if you're like retargeting and your influencers are not breaking even, you know, everything you're doing with that, don't try to optimize, just change the game. Build compounding assets, right? Your email flows, stack your PR with like credible third-party proof, reward creation of content, right? Rather than for your community, rather than just clicks. You know, owned attention is something you can scale forever, right? If you tie it into your product usage, post-purchase flows, refills, or like we talked about momentarily, like cross-introduction, right? Now that everybody's copying tube mascara, we're going into tubing eyeliner until they figure that out. And then we're going to be on to the next innovation and so on. So I guess a takeaway on that would be, ask yourselves, what asset did your last, I don't know, $50,000 spend or whatever spend, what asset did your last, you know, $50,000 or $10,000 spend leave behind that's going to compound next month? And that's how I feel you should measure CAC, you know, in asset hours created, your emails, your UGC, your PR clips, your SEO pages, not just orders, right? Because if the asset doesn't persist, it doesn't compound next month, then it's just rent. And so maybe just a different way to look at that particular.
Yeah. Do you have an example for that? Because that's really interesting. Maybe explain it a little more.
Yeah, like for example, like there's some people that are just as like, you know, just ads, and like ads scale, right? But and somebody may argue, you know, ads scale, but earned doesn't, right? Owned attention doesn't. But I wouldn't agree with that. Ads scale until the auction stops, right? If you can build like a ruthless creative test engine where you're like daily concept sprints, 10 new hooks every week, you know, paid can still be your cheapest customer. But most brands don't do that volume. And we ourselves, after all these years, you know, we're considered a small brand relative to the big ones out there. We don't do that same volume. So, you know, so your examples, like I said, you know, we would put time in charting and cultivating our customer base with emails, with UGC. Why do you use Blink? Why have you been a 20-year-old Blink customer? And we take some time, that pause, to create those types of assets and double down on SEO and clean up and do more on PR so that we can keep having that nurturing, I should say, keep nurturing that asset that's compounding year after year for us. We have a base that stayed with us from inception till now, and that base keeps growing every year, slowly, but it keeps growing. And I'd rather have that type of business than something that just goes up and down, right? Unless your goal is just to make a bag of cash and sell and get out, which is another strategy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Bless everybody who does that. But for my case, I just like, life is a marathon. You've heard the expression, life is a marathon, not a sprint. Well, business can be that way as well, right? You can build to last for a very long time, to keep feeding you and your family for a very long time. And for me, that's always been, the goal, and I've thankfully achieved it. I don't have to, we don't have money to fly to Mars and do things there, but it's okay. I'm okay with that.
Well, give me some more. Give me some more business nuggets. You're a wealth of knowledge.
So what, in any particular field, any particular area? Many. So sales is, I always start with sales as being a very important talent to develop, right? Because even if things are not going good on admin side for your business, you could always hire into that or learn into that, and you have time to deal with that. But if you can generate revenue, right, and find a way of doing that, that's always going to help things, right? So through all my problems and in my 26-year career, when we've had them, I've always sold my way out of it. So let me give you an example of how that translates into our business. When we first started, we couldn't get the attention of the big boys, right? The Sephoras of the world. And we were a small little nothing brand. So then I looked one day at a store and I'm like, you know what? Everybody's here. How am I going to stand out? Everybody's here. So then I said, what's our value proposition? Our value proposition is that we have a mascara that lasts longer than any other mascara on the planet. Whether you sweat, you tear. So why don't we start thinking about situations that need those types of things, right? So we said, okay, well, who cries? Oh, a bride cries tears of joy. So we would go to a bridal store and we'd say, hey, you should sell our mascara. And they're like, we're a bridal store. Like, I know, but your brides, when they buy a $3,000 dress, are not going to care to spend another $26 when you're going to assure them that they're not going to have a raccoon face on their most important day. And they're like, you know what, you're right. So we started selling into bridal stores. Then we did the same thing with every relevant, right, channel. So we would look for relevant channels. So we said, who else sweats or cries or tears or has oily skin? Well, laser eye surgery centers. When you poke your eyes with a laser, it takes a year for your cornea to heal. I don't know if that's the case today, but 20 years ago, that was the case, because it took about a year to heal. And if you put a mascara that flaked into your eye, you can damage your cornea. And so, so we said, well, you should tell them to not wear mascara, but they're not going to listen. So tell them, if you're going to wear mascara, wear ours, because it can't flake into their eyes. And so we sold into laser surgery centers and ophthalmologists, right? So the idea is, when you walk into those places, now instead of me being with a wall of 4 other billion competitors that have way better marketing budgets than us and way more intelligent and better marketers and advertisers, right, than we have, you walk in and I'm alone. I'm the only guy selling there. And so that's how we kind of grew the brand. Not by big budgets, but by being relevant to a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And so here's another fun one. So one of my friends was told me that in the Orthodox Jewish community, they love it. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you can't put anything off. You can't put anything on or off during Shabbat. From Friday, I believe, sundown till sundown the next day. So they sleep with it. And I'm like, oh. So once we found that out, then we started selling to the Jewish Orthodox community and saying, hey, you can put your mascara, don't worry about it until you can remove it. And it'll stay the same. So just a lot of interesting channels like that would, constantly work for us. And tennis, so when you think like that now, when you open up your mind and not try to go where everybody else is, then endless opportunities, right? So tennis pro shops, right? I live in Florida. You play tennis in the heat, you sweat, it's hot. Not a lot of mascaras can endure that. Ours can. So, boom. So figuring out how to sell differently is something that I would put, a lot of kids. And today, with ChatGPT and AI, you don't even have to come up with those ideas, right? You could just guide it, and then it can tell you. I strongly recommend everybody jumps on AI, not as a cheat code, but as a tool to help guide your thinking, and make it even better.
Yeah, no, I love AI. I think it's a must. We were just talking about how it's almost too good, and that if one of my employees sends me an email and it's like bad, it's like you almost have no excuse now. It's just
Right.
put it into ChatGPT, have it help you explain to me what you're trying to get across, and I should not be having to stare at it to better understand. It's a tool, use it, and yeah, totally agree. So tell
Yeah.
me, tell me maybe about some AI. How do you use that in your business now? Because that's a big thing.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of AI, but I'm also, I understand its limitations. A lot of people feel it just knows everything, but I don't know if they're aware that it only knows what people are feeding it, right? So if you just fed it that, hey, John is amazing, and that's the only bit of information it had, then any question that people ask will be, hey, John is amazing. So that's how it works. Now, on a much more complicated level, because now they're feeding it everything that we've ever learned in the history of mankind. So it's getting better and better and better. But so I use it with a grain of salt, because it always worries me when I ask. Now it's ChatGPT 5. That's the one I've been using. Before it had several different models before yesterday, right? So when I would ask the same question to different models, and I would get different answers. So I'd be like, yeah, that's not it. So I treat it like a bunch of employees. I'm like, hey, who has an opinion on this? And I get the different answers, and then I kind of take what I want as the decision. I make the decision based on what I feel is best. Use it as a tool. But to go back to your question, we've already used it to. We hardly pay copywriters anymore. There's no more copywriting. The blogs for SEO that we do. They're all pretty much AI. Translations, we don't hire translators anymore. Those types of things are really working well in AI. So we don't use so anything copy, we've pretty much just limited to the AI. We're using that. We haven't gotten our content creation well. It's not great yet. We haven't found anything. We've tested all of them yet, and we keep testing them. And they still look AI, and we don't want to cheat. When we want to have somebody wearing our mascara, it has to be a real person. So we're not ready to commit to that type of content generation AI. But if they're just text posts, things like that, we'll do it. We haven't been really great at social for us. Again, it's our just customers that are loyal, spreading the word. Social tends to be more younger, although of course everybody uses it. Our customer base is a little bit older. It tends to be 35 plus, and with 45 plus and even 55 plus categories. So it's the superwoman, right? Like I'm a mom, I'm an athlete, I'm a career woman. I do it all, but I keep things together. And those superwomen are thankfully a lot of them are our customers, and that's who we cater to for the most part.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I guess it's a pretty direct audience, your specific audience that you go to, but are you trying to hit with the budget that you have for marketing? Do you guys particularly go after athletes and people that are going to sweat and cry a lot, or do you kind of just all women? I know you're in Sephora.
Yeah, we've we're just one of those brands who has not been lucky with the influencer world, right? So we've gotten a lot of love from them, and we do partake in seeding and all that kind of stuff. But we've never found a way to really scale it. We've never had that viral video moment. There's been some brands that have just blown up because of like that right video. So unfortunately, that hasn't happened to us. We've tried. We've sent a lot of people, and we continually do that. It's been always slow and steady growth. It's never been, boom. But we're trying to learn, and maybe it's the content, maybe it's the way we write the copy, but we still have something to do there. So that's not our strength, and I wouldn't want to talk about it as if I was an authority on it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you talked about earlier, which I loved, was education. Tell me about your opinions on education. How do you educate yourself today?
So I'm a big, I would summarize life as cause and effect, right? The more you understand what causes and the effect of the cause, the better you'll be. And if you drill down and you keep asking why, until you learn everything about that topic, when you know more than a topic than anybody else, you'll do better in that field. So I'm convinced of that, and I just want to learn continuously on anything. I obsess about learning, and that's why I don't like when I hear people
Love that.
say, and I'm 55 now, so and I'm still, in fact, going back to when you say like what would happen if I ever did sell, the first thing I would do is go back to school and get a PhD in something, just because I miss and I love learning. So we're never going to learn everything in this world. Nobody knows everything, but learning more just makes you more interesting of a person. It does help your business, right? So I really don't like when people say this is a waste of time. Sure, everything, there's parts of anything that could be considered a waste of time, but it's really about you, right? How can you go to a university and it be a waste of time unless you're just suntanning all the day, right? But if you're using the resources and the tools that it has, in fact, I don't know if you're aware, but the biggest thing that Ivy Leagues look for over, and the biggest criteria is like, is this person, one of the biggest things that they look for is this person, do I believe that this person is going to use all the resources I have to do something great? That's really the it factor that they look for. And if you haven't shown that you love learning and you're obsessed about something, doesn't matter what, cleaning the air or building robots, whatever it is. But you gotta be obsessed. So I'm an obsessive learner, and I just like to really know as much as I can about industry. And then you'll make your choices, right? Then you'll make your choices. I had an opportunity way back to sell, and some people to this day are like, "Oh, you should have sold back then." I'm like, "Nah, but what was I gonna do? I know this industry really well now. I love it. I have a lot of gas in the tank, and it's keeping me happy. So it's okay to pick your battles and your what you need to do. It's I don't want to keep spreading that thing about like always just big and crash and Lamborghinis and like I was actually sad when I got my first Lamborghini, because I realized it didn't have, and I love Lamborghini. I'm not shitting on them in any way, but I was sad that I spent all that money and it didn't even have a cup holder, and my first Lamborghini didn't have a cup holder, and it didn't even have a great sound system, because it's all about speed. I'm not going to do 200 miles an hour down the street and kill myself or kill somebody else or crash. So it was like, wow, so you learn these things as you're coming up that you thought you wanted and thought was great, and then you turn out being like, oh, this is not as exciting as I thought it was, or it's just a car with less features than a $50,000 car.
Less features. Yeah. We were talking, my wife and I were talking about that. And one of my mentors was also just saying, he was like, yeah, really without gas or without energy, it's basically just a big hunk of metal. It's got absolutely like zero use, and which puts into perspective, all it is get you to point A to point B. And because we were talking about different vehicles, but because I was looking at the self-driving stuff, I'm like, man, that right there is worth, just take me to where I want to go. Put in the thing and the car drives me there, and I can answer calls and stuff like that. Man, that'd be beautiful. But
Yeah, yeah.
but
Well, look, to everybody has different needs, right? Like I didn't appreciate it because I wasn't like a speed guy. I didn't
right.
know about engines and this and that. I just got it because it looked nice and because I thought that's what you do when you make money. And but I'm sure somebody who like loved speed or racing or went on a track with it would have a way better experience than I would, right? But I value comfort. I value um, toys. The tech,
Hmm. Yeah.
massage
Yeah.
chairs. So there are great cars that have all these features so yeah, to each his own. Everybody has their different. There's no right answer, right? Everybody has their own desires and their own
Oh yeah.
things.
Individuality. Um,
Absolutely.
for the education, so right now, how are you educating yourself? Do you like reading books? Do you like listening to podcasts? Are you in school right now in a university?
I am not, but I'm gonna go back. I promise you. I will have my a doctorate by the time before I die. Hopefully, that's a goal. Right now, I'm just obsessed about AI. So my current before AI, it was learning what all the people who have done well in fields like finance. So finance is something being able to control and manage your money is something that's not a skill set that's really taught too much, and you should learn about it. And so anything finance related, books that are related to finance that are very important. Um, that have become very, or that were very important, like Black Swan and that kind of stuff. A random walk down Wall Street, uh, also cool. So stuff like that. But AI, now I'm following, I found two or three people that are really, really on it because I don't have the time to be as on it, right? You really got it. Things are changing daily. And they are great at kind of keeping me up to date. And then if they recommend that I read something, then I'll read it. But I'm not a tech guy. I don't know coding. So, that part of the stuff I leave it out. But I'm very interested in figuring out how to commercialize and how to bring that technology into my business. And we already are doing it. We're already developing products. So this month, we just sent to the lab 5 formulas that were completely made from AI.
Wow.
And they're crazy formulas. They're like my tubing technology kind of stuff, like really out there, like innovative, and nobody has it on the planet kind of things. And but I don't know that once the chemists get to cooking, if what the AI spit out is actually going to work. If it does, oh my God, it's a whole other level of crazy.
Wow. Wow, that's exciting. And
Very
and,
exciting.
and imagine how many trial and errors or tests, without AI you would have had to done, or how much money you would
Oh,
have had to spend for just the research, the R&D.
every single aspect of my business touches AI today. Every single aspect. There's nothing that we don't do that doesn't, involve it as, like I said, like an extra opinion, like an extra employee's opinion. We kind of look at it as an employee having an opinion. Sometimes the employee does things, and as of yesterday, they released the agent mode, and so now we're just thinking, okay, well, what can the agent do? And
Hmm.
so I have a trip. I have to go speak at a customer who's opening 2 new stores, and I just said, what, let me try this out. And I just said, look, here's what I like. Here's the type of times I like to fly, the budget I want to have. Find me the best airplanes. And I had 3 different options to go to because they're opening 3 stores simultaneously, and I could only be in one. So I said, find me from where I live the best route, and it gave me everything. And then I double checked it, and it was on. So yeah,
Mm.
so no more travel agent.
Yeah. I used ChatGPT one time for one of the companies that I started, was like a supplement company, and I was like, take the measurements, and I had to do all the powders and the formula and the capsules, and it was wrong by like 100 by 200 millimeters, which I don't know why I didn't like. I double checked it through the ChatGPT, but it did it. It was off by 200, and I was like, man, and I ordered like the wrong size bottles. Spent like to try it, but no, AI has definitely gotten a lot better month over month. It just gets better. But and that even being said, where do you find jobs today? I would say people to people skills is something that AI can never take away. But with AI getting so good, what are some jobs that you think are never going to be taken away that people should focus on educating themselves in?
Yeah, that's a tough. So I think the good news is nothing is going to disappear all entirely overnight. Like you can't just take over industries, right? Um, but you're some are going to go faster than others, right? Like you can argue right now, every lawyer and doctor is in trouble unless you're a surgeon who's actually going to perform surgery, because all that knowledge has already been proven that they can pass, the LSAT, the bar exam, and they can pass medical exams. They have more knowledge. The AIs have more knowledge, but to be able to interact with the patient and see, or I don't know if they're gonna just go away. So I think we all in every field need to stay on top of AI to figure out how you can best use it as a phase one. And as that's happening, we'll see which careers are going to completely go away, right? Like I had somebody saying, "Oh, you're going to see robots doing landscaping next year," and I'm like, "Am I really though? Because are they really going to navigate the side of my house and properly? Are they going to have that? Are they going to be that good that they can step over the little things and there's too many little details. There's so many fine motor skills that we have as humans so there's things that involve fine motor skills that I don't think are going to be just taken over right away. But look, if you're a copywriter, yeah, I'd be worried because that's something immediately you can do. But what I told my copywriter is, look, I may not use you and you may not be able to charge the same way, but here's the good news. And you alone can only give me 2 or 3 articles a week. Now you have a tool that maybe can give me 30. So you could still charge the same money and just give me more product. I'm still happy, you're still happy, because we're producing more. So those are the kind of ways I'm trying to figure out how we can use it. But at the same time, I don't believe like the copywriters are dead today. They're not like completely useless today, because you still have to read the article. You still have to make sense that it's on brand. Like the AI is not giving me 100% of the time something that's on brand. It keeps forgetting things that I've prompted it for, never to say, or words that we do say, it'll forget them. So I still need somebody to proofread all that. So it's just that the role has changed a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about your doctorate degree you're going to get. Is that for any kind of business perspective, or you just would like to get your doctorate?
So, great question, and I'll give you another little nugget to share with your audience. So, one of there's 2 things that helped me in business and in life dramatically that have nothing to do with business. One is a logics class, and I don't even care if you take it as an intro class. Even an intro class is better than no class, or just read an intro to a logic book. Learning how to think logically is so important to work through any issue that comes in life, and that was a very important, very important. It helps you in debating, helps you to try and sell your point. It helps you in so many ways. So intro to logic, very important. The second thing is my mentor had given me a book about a 14-year-old girl who met this gentleman in the forest who took her through 2,000 years of philosophy. It's basically an intro book to philosophy. It's called Sophie's World, Jocelyn Gardner.
Okay.
And I looked at him like, he's giving me a book about a 14-year-old girl. And obviously, since I had no expertise in philosophy or experience in philosophy, it was meant to open up my mind, right, to the ideas of philosophy. And it was such a great experience. I remember reading the first chapter and I'm like, oh my God, Socrates has it figured out. Like, this is it. This is the philosophy. And then you read the second one, and then you're like, wait a sec, this first guy is crazy. This second guy makes so much more sense. And then third one, and by the time you read the end of the book and you read the mindset of all these and the philosophies of all these great people that have thought through all the issues that we're thinking through again over and over. History repeats itself. You make your own philosophy. You're like, I'll take a little bit about this, a little bit from this guy, I'll sprinkle a little bit of this guy, and then you create your own kind of mental model, right? And we all have a mental model. We all have a mental model of how we feel the world and people should act towards us, and how we feel we should act towards people. And that's all developed by doing things like reading, and who you're interacting with, and your family raising you, and your teachers. And it's a hodgepodge of a whole bunch of stuff. But Sophie's World, highly recommend, just because if you've never done anything in philosophy, it's very easy read, and it touches on a whole bunch of things. It just opens up your mind to philosophy. Like, you can argue in philosophy that you're not here, right? You can go crazy, and there's a whole bunch of ways you could take it. But that's what I would do. I would probably get a doctorate in philosophy, only because it's a fascinating topic, and it really makes you think about what's important and what's not, right, in life.
Yeah. The we're not even here. I think therefore I am. I forgot who said that, but the French guy, I'm pretty sure, right? You know what I'm talking about? Is that what you're talking about? I think therefore I am, and man, who was that? But anywho,
Wasn't that Socrates? Oh no,
no,
that's I know anything. I don't know anything at all.
yeah,
I
he's
think
like
it was it Nietzsche. Maybe Nietzsche. I think you're talking about Nietzsche.
I don't know.
Let me
I'd have to
Google it
look.
right now, and I will tell
It
you.
was
I
a
think
French
we're
guy. He's like, we could be like,
oh
this could all be
Descartes. Descartes.
Descartes. Yeah.
Yeah, Descartes.
Um, Perfect. Yeah, because it was like we could just be in like a simulation kind of thing. Like he didn't have the technology that we had, but he basically was like thinking like, oh, we could be in a simulation, and a demon could just be messing with our brains. We could be torturing, and then this is just a world that we don't know. And he's like, how do
Right.
I even know I exist? Was the
Well,
thing, and
what's funny
then
about that is the whole simulation thing started because the entire universe can be expressed mathematically, right? Every single thing is mathematic. Like this podcast is all zeros and ones going through back and forth. Everything
crazy.
is
Yeah.
math, but nobody knows why. And then there's physical limitations to the math, right? Like the speed of light. You could only see so far. And then you could start, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but you could start thinking, and you could say, look, if I were to design a universe or a game of people, and I would not want them to like get past the border, I would create limits. And what is the speed of light? It's a limit, right? We could only see so far. Everything's black after that observable universe. And hey, man, play within your world, and it's great. So, but yeah,
No, I
that's
love that.
that's
I'm
funny
all into
little.
conspiracies, so don't even get me started on that. But well, I'll ask you two other questions here. What is the best advice or best quote that you like a lot?
The best quote. What do I tell my kids? The cause and effect. You gotta really appreciate and understand how things work.
Mm,
And that has never. Oh, I know. My biggest philosophy in life is balance. Right. I have never in any aspect of my life seen where either extreme sides has been better than kind of the balance in the middle. And in any topic, right? Like when I'm a tennis player, when I tried to go crazy and my body broke down, right? Or when I wasn't playing enough and then I was losing to guys I would beat. Whereas when I played just enough and I could enjoy it long term, there's the balance in tennis, right? So anything, most of the time, it's always the balance. Like if you spend too much time, I could have done a lot more with the business over the years and done those big sales, but it would cost time with my family, and that's not something that I wanted, when they were growing up. So you have to kind of be true to yourself and not just go with what you see, right? Because a lot of that's illusion. I think we're aware of that now. I said to my kids a while ago, at one point it's going to be cool to not be on social media because people are finally going to realize how destructive.
mm,
Not all of it is, because I use social media. Like I love TikTok. I have my physics on there, and I have philosophers on it. I learn so much from TikTok, But then there's TikTok that is just will rot your brain
yeah.
topics. So I'm not anti social media, but what I am anti is this illusion that unfortunately affects a lot of kids, and makes them depressed that their life's not like that. Meanwhile, the people that are doing that are also depressed, and because you can't live like that forever. There's no peak. Life is a balance, right? You gotta kind of go through it with minimizing the negatives when they happen, and then maximizing the positives. And when you do that, when you stop and smell the roses for when something is happening that is great, and you stretch it out, but then when something happens that's not great, and you learn from it, and you kind of compress it and make it short, that gives you then the feeling that you have a happy life. If you do the opposite, you're going to be miserable. So yeah, that's more philosophical than business. I think you were asking me about a business quote, but
Well, I think no, just any quote. We like talking about philosophical stuff on here all the time. I mean, I love like self-help books. It really is business books. There's so like cybernetics is just like you think, therefore you are almost of like not like manifesting, not to get like spiritual with it, but like you can like have the power of thought of like doing. And if when the teachers grow up and your teacher's like, oh, your kid's bad at math, and you tell the kid he's bad at math, this is like the main thing of it. And then the kid grows up, be like, it's literally would be against the laws of the universe for me to get a good grade on my math, test. When that's being implemented. So then having that like mindset in business and in anything, I think that's huge. And philosophy is a big part of making a lot of
right.
money. I think every good business person has a lot of philosophy. It may be different than somebody else's philosophy, but they have their own. Wouldn't you agree? Everybody has their own philosophy, whether or
You
not they
need
want
to.
to
You have
tell
to
it
have
that way.
something that guides you.
Yeah.
Something that guides you. And I
Or
kind of have
reasoning.
more of a scientific one, so that I'm. In other words, what I mean by that is I am open to collapsing what I believe today if tomorrow, it was disproven in some way. Because in science you can't prove something, right? You can only disprove it. And so if something gets disproven, I'm happy to embrace a completely different philosophy on something. But yeah, I have my philosophy. You have your philosophy. It guides us through life, and hopefully, it helps you become a better person and help people and become successful. But really, ultimately, you want to be happy. You want to help, and that's kind of how I try to live my life.
Yeah. Well, then talking about disproving, here comes the second question: is what is the worst advice that you hear people give, and why, and what would be the alternative?
Right now, it's like don't educate yourself. I 100% agree. And I hate to repeat it again, but it's right. It's like it's so annoying to me because you're basically saying don't learn. Like don't telling somebody not to embrace learning, which you should do for the rest of your life. You know, it's the opposite of what you should be telling someone. You should be telling them learn, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you need to learn only at university, but learn. Like you got to keep
Yeah.
learning. And you can't say university is a waste of time because if like that's where you learn, right? They form you. There's you can go there and do you could take as much from it as you can. Like you hear then they use examples like, well, this Bill Gates dropped out and he's a billionaire. Yeah, but he dropped out because he learned enough about a particular topic that he loved, and then he became so good at it that he himself became the person advancing that particular field at that time. There was nothing else to learn. He had to invent and grow, and that's what he wanted to obsess about. And that's it. He took what he could from that university. Everybody can take more from it. Everybody can take as much as they want from learning. So, and yes, it is a business, and there's parts of it that are completely crap. I'm with you. I'm not saying it's all, but don't tell people not to learn and not and at university is a
Yeah. I think
I'm
that's
not
a really good point. A lot of people hear maybe college, don't go to college, and what they hear is don't learn. But what it is maybe like if you want to be a, entrepreneur, maybe college for depending on what business you want to do, college might not be the best way for you to learn that exact skill. But if you wanted to be a doctor, obviously you got to go to college. You need those
right.
degrees and you need that education. But I do agree, maybe a different verbiage of because that's how people see is the only way for me to learn is by going to school. If people are saying they don't go to school, therefore they're telling me not to learn.
Right.
and that's a big differentiative. But
Big,
yeah.
big. And from a business perspective, a piece of advice would be, you're try to do when you're starting whatever you're starting, make sure that you look for one thing. That's the most important thing in my opinion, which is repeat purchase. So for not your friends and not your family, if you can get a complete stranger to buy whatever you're selling, and then that person comes back again because they found value in that product or service, and they buy it again and again, focus on getting to that point first, and then once you're there, you can build your business. Too many times, people start with like, oh, I have a cool logo, and I'm going to take a shirt with my logo, and I'm going to get an office, and they haven't figured out the product or service that exists, right? You don't want to sell something once. It's too much time and effort. You want to sell something that once you sell it once, people are going to come back and buy it again and again and again. And until you get to that point, just keep it small so that you don't have to give away everything. Because if you just have an idea and you try to raise capital, right, they're going to take away a lot of your business because they're taking most of the risk. But when you have proof of concept, that would be, all you need to do. Because now you know that, hey, every time I do X, right, cause and effect, every time I do X, Y happens. Now I can scale that. I can get money. And my argument to now the investor would be, if I couldn't do it myself, I would go back to what we first talked about. Make sure you have enough margin to do this yourself. Because if you give away zero equity, it's all yours. And that's the type of work ethic and belief in your business that you should have. If you don't have it, then you're not doing something that, look for something else that you feel more passionate about. But get to that point, even if it's on a very small scale where you see repeat purchase, and then if it keeps working, now you have a business. Now you can go to an investor and say, listen, every time I do X, Y happens, and I'm only going to give you 10% of my business because I need your cash, but that's all I need because I'm going to put it in here, and then this is what's going to happen. And then they'll say, you know what, you're right, because I'd rather invest in that and get less than a business where I may see nothing and I have 90% of. So repeat purchase without counting friends and family. Complete strangers, are they coming back and buying again? Now you have the basis of a business. And then the academics kick in, right? Know how to calculate your margins and know how to calculate, your inventory purchases and how to buy and when to buy. And all those aspects are important in business.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's one of the things is, CAC, your cost to acquire that customer, and then your LTV, the lifetime value of that customer is, are they going to buy once, or can you increase that? Okay, they're going to buy for the next year, and how much is that worth? And then that can also change on how much does it cost you to acquire that customer. And I love the
Right.
metric that you used to be able to achieve kind of they're two little different metrics, but LTV huge and kind of like what you're saying. And I love that. Yeah, if you're relying, I almost say to people too, like my little friends, they're wanting to start like a t-shirt company. I'm like, please do not try to force family and friends to buy it because it's only going to hurt the relationship. You're probably not going to go anywhere with it. And then it's better to go try to like make it happen and then see if your friends and family want to buy some. But that's a big mistake I see people do all the time. And my wife sees it with her friends. They try to get like sponsored and they're trying to get all their friends and family to buy their like essential oils. Just just don't do it. It just hurts.
Right.
It looks bad on you. Don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, it's not going to support the life you want to lead, right? You want to build a business so that you can take care of yourself and build a house and a family. And so a couple of friends and family buying is not going to do that. You really need strangers that you don't know to see value in what you're doing. And that's it. So, and I agree with you with LTV and CAC. The only addition I would do with CAC is, again, I look for spend where you could compound every month afterwards, not just one time and not just one time ROAS. Is this thing going to generate something that'll compound? What's it going to leave behind that's going to again compound next month?
Yeah.
That's a
How do
different.
you how do you do that? Are you saying like follow up emails? So once you acquire that customer, right? You spent your $10, you got that customer to buy one time. I'm just putting $10 out there. You get
Right.
that customer to buy one time, capture their email, maybe capture their SMS. Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
it's after you capture email, right? So after you have their email, now what are you going to do with it, right? How are you going to compound? How are you going to convert that customer into buying more of your products or trying different things? That's just one example. But another way of compounding that is just using that customer to get you UGC, right? Because who's going to speak more authentically about your products than an actual customer using it, right? And who's going to convince somebody else about how great your product or service is other than a real customer using it? And so that's what I mean. And then spend time also on PR and SEO is free and cheap, not completely free and cheap, but cheaper, right, than big ad spends. Spend time thinking about, well, how are you going to become an authority, right? You want Google to look at you as an authority, right, in a particular field or topic. Spend time thinking about that. Spend time writing about that, and building that. It's a little longer of a build, but it's so great return, you know. And yeah, so
I love that. I love that. Well, Louis, give us some plugs. How can we hear more about you, get in contact with you?
you could find me on LinkedIn, and my business is Blink Inc. BLINCINC.com, and that's where I spend all of my time now focusing on growing, continuing to grow our cosmetics business, which is 26 years old and growing, and excited about some products that we'll make. So that's pretty simple and easy. All the other times you can find me on a tennis court.
I like it. I like it. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you, Louis, for coming on. This has been John Klein with Brandwidth. If you guys found value in this content, please consider subscribing, sharing to somebody who can learn from this. If you please want to leave a comment, we'll try to answer any comments you have. Leave a like. And Louis, such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.